So welcome, Pride listeners. Thanks for joining me. I really appreciate you coming on here, and I sincerely love the feedback we've been getting. So keep it coming, and we're going to continue to provide you massive value and bring you new topics and experts, and helping you protect and build your wealth, and helping you create the future you truly want. So today I have a special guest, Logan Freeman. He's out of Kansas City, and he's the principal, co-founder, and chief development officer at FTW Investments. And, they basically help folks build wealth through selective private investments in the real estate world, and from acquiring them to operating them, and then providing a vehicle for investors to get into real estate when maybe they didn't think they could. So, Logan, I really appreciate you spending some time with us, and love to hear more about you and your background and your business, but welcome to the show.
Tom, thanks for having me. I'm energized, thriving, and focused, ready to bring some value to the listeners today, and hoping my story may be able to help people along their journeys.
No, it's great. Yeah, and I love how, we come to our own sort of evolution to things in life and investments. And, I know we have a connection. You were a football player too. I want to talk about that too. It's helped me in my lifetime. I play football. I'm a little guy, but there's comes in different sizes and shapes.
Yeah.
But I love the background. So tell my audience a little bit more about you and your background, how you got into business and real estate investing, and we'll go from there.
Tom, can you guess the capital of Missouri?
St. Louis?
Jefferson City. It's not St. Louis.
Man.
It's not Kansas City. It's not Columbia. It's not Springfield. It's Jefferson City. So I grew up in Jefferson City, and most folks have never heard of Jefferson City, but it's a great place to grow up, man. I mean, it really is a nice little small town, but I grew up on the farms, We were on the Missouri River, and, hay fields and farming was a big industry in Jefferson City. And so as a 14-year-old man, or a little man, I will say, maybe not in size, but definitely in maturity, I decided to go find a way to make some money, right? And so the only way that you can do that as a 14-year-old really is in the hay farms and the fields. And so I did that when I was 14. Why did I do that? Well, I saw my mom working 2 jobs to keep food on the table and to really, try to give us a better life, right? And so early on, I was very interested in this idea of trading time for money. And I think that was something that was drilled into me because both of my parents had, jobs. I didn't know what an entrepreneur necessarily was. And so fast forward a little bit into freshman year of high school, I went to a private Catholic school, and they had Dave Ramsey's Financial Peace University as a class, right? And so I'm like, oh, well, this is the way that I need to, set myself up for success. If I'm 15 years old now and I start a Roth IRA when I'm 60 years old, I'll be set, right? And so I started doing that, and I started working multiple jobs in the hay fields, in the catering business, doing dishes, you name it. I was working because I thought that's what you needed to do. At the same time, I also was an athlete. I found my identity growing up as an athlete. It was probably my outlet, I would say. I had a lot of energy as a young man, and having a young son now, I definitely see that, coming to fruition as well with him. But at the end of the day, I needed an outlet to find my identity as a young person. And so athletics and work is really what drove me. And so I was able to get a scholarship to go play collegiate football in a Division II school near Kansas City. And this is where I really started to prosper and learn and really understand what it meant to actually learn. Not just, deep concepts, but the idea of sitting down, being disciplined, and learning things that, you didn't know previously, right? I mean, I skated through high school with a B average, right? 3.0 GPA. I was never really a great academic, but I really turned it on in college and became a ESPN all-academic All-American, and I thrived on the football field as well. And I was a team captain for multiple seasons there. And at the end of the day, I had the opportunity at the end of college to go play as an undrafted free agent in the NFL with the Oakland Raiders. However, that didn't work out. I was cut from the Oakland Raiders, and like many things in my life, if I'm not all in, it's hard for me to be, just a toe in the water. I don't have a lot of just hobbies. I like to be much more deep than I do wide, and I tend to get obsessed. I have a very obsessive personality, and early on, I had a hard time, channeling that in the right ways. But now I can figure out who I am as a person and channel those things into productivity, right? And whether that be in a business, in my athletic endeavors, as a family man, in my faith, whatever I'm trying to accomplish. And so when I was cut from the NFL, I went back to school, finished my master's degree. And, this was a big shift for me. I was a 335-pound offensive lineman at the NFL Combine. And in less than 6 months, I had lost 110 pounds. I was 219 pounds. I had a full-time job making 265 cold calls a day, getting told no 259 times a day. And because I needed to pay for my tuition because I didn't have a scholarship anymore. And so that was a big turning point in my life from a new identity shift. And I'm going to kind of use that theme here as we continue to chat, because I had to drive an hour to the job. And instead of just listening to music or, tuning out, this is, believe it or not, back before even podcasts were really going. I mean, John Lee Dumas and Lewis Howes were about the only two folks that I knew that had podcasts at the time. And so I had CDs. I had Jim Rohn, Zig Ziglar, Tony Robbins, Tom Hopkins. I had all of these CDs that I was listening to on the way to the job, and then on the way back before school started in the evenings for my master's program. And so I had a big identity shift as well, physically and mentally there. And so when I got done with my master's degree, my father, bless his soul, he came from a 13 children household on a one-bedroom house on a tobacco farm from North Carolina. He's a Native American, and he was one of the younger kiddos, but he had struggled with drugs and alcohol his whole life. And when he came up to help me move out of my apartment, I knew something wasn't right. And less than 4 weeks later, my dad had passed away. So you can imagine that, a football player who's lost 100 pounds, who's got a job, making 265 cold calls, and his dad just passed away. I did land a job as a franchise consultant with Jimmy John's as their youngest franchise consultant that they had ever hired, but that got delayed with the complications for my father. So a big kind of opportunity for me to figure out what I wanted my life to be. And so I kind of refocused on my faith. I had some really great mentors in my life. I already was listening and reading a lot. And so I had these great inputs into me, and that has now propelled me into owning a business, multiple businesses, being an entrepreneur, having a family with 3 children, and continuing to go after certain, physical endeavors. As an ex-offensive lineman, I ran my first marathon this year, as I was 235 pounds when I ran it, but I never thought I would run a marathon before. And so able to just kind of take some of those same mentalities, whether that be through athletics or the hayfields of work ethic and discipline, and try to apply them into my life now in investing in commercial real estate, owning a commercial real estate brokerage, property management company, and really trying to develop something that can create a lasting legacy for myself and my family here.
Quite amazing story. And it's always cool to hear different stories on how people came across like real estate, right? Or a business, right? Because you never thought, probably, you couldn't envision that, right? At the time when you're working in the farm and doing going back to school, like you just can't imagine that, right? And
Right.
it's in that very short time, like you kind of look backwards. I don't know when you reflect on it, because I sometimes reflect myself, like the transformations you had in your body, your mind, right? Your sort of thought processes. I mean, the good things you're feeding yourself help you to develop into a new identity, someone bigger and better than you were even 5 years ago. It's
That's right.
amazing to hear that kind of story. So kudos to you for that.
Yeah, I think that two things that reign true in anyone's life, if you're trying to make a better life for yourself and your loved ones, is you need to get some different perspective, right? Don't forget when you're in the forest that you can get blinded by the trees, right? And so you have to be careful with that. So perspective is important. Well, how do you get perspective? Well, it's the people that you spend time with, or let's say you don't have a big power base and you don't have folks that you can spend time with. Well, great. This little device in our pockets, you can listen to this podcast. You can listen to so many different things that can give you a new perspective on life, right? And that's very important. But you also have to have hope. And I think hope is probably the most important thing in people's lives. I mean, as United States of America, we have really gone through in the whole country, or the whole world, sorry, has really gone through some stuff the last couple of years. And I understand where everyone is, challenged with mental health and physical health and things like that. That's hard. Well, you have to have hope, because that's the only thing that's going to bring you through, to get you up at that 5 o'clock, alarm to go make the day. And I always say, I steal these lines from folks that I listen to, but winning the day back. That is a perspective for me every single day that I wake up, that I'm trying to, with my hair on fire, win the day back. Like, that is so important. And if you can, and Admiral William McRaven is one of my favorite mentors. And I call him a mentor. I've never met the guy. I've never spoken to the guy, but I've read every single book. I've listened to every single podcast and every single YouTube video that he's ever done. He was the chancellor for the University of Texas, and he has the famous commencement speech of making your bed. And so now my children, they know that they need to wake up, and before they go to daycare in the morning, we got to make that bed, because a task one or a task done is a task one. And that sets you up for success, in the rest of your day. And so I think perspective and hope is so important as folks are, looking to create some different life for themselves, and or just become a better individual, husband, wife, whatever it is, father, mother. I think that's really important, and that's not spoke about a whole lot, especially with men. I think in the entrepreneurship world, and that's really important to remember. We do have emotions too as men, and it's very important not to just put them under the rug and just keep on plowing away. Tim Grover said it best. If you continue, he was the coach for Michael Jordan. He's a coach for Kobe Bryant, Dwayne Wade, Charles Barkley, all of these very successful individuals. If you just grind every single day, well, what happens? You grind yourself into dust. And so who is filling up your cup every single day? That's really important to keep perspective on.
No, absolutely. Such wise words. And it reminds me of Dan Sullivan, that strategic coach, sort of mentality of the gap and the gain. And we can get so, because we are achievers, we want to do, you build that identity you're trying to do, right? We're trying to provide for our families and complete tasks and, all those great things. But we can always forget about where we came from, and even some of the minor wins that we've had in a week. Like, if I had to push myself to think about those things, because you can get down in the doldrums and get negative very, very quickly, right? But then you got to say, am I moving forward? Have I done something good? What did I learn along the way here that's going to make me a better person, a better human, better father, whatever it is, and it'll keep you motivated and going, hopefully, right? And reflect on it, because it's hard.
If your self-worth is tied to your results that you're getting in life, then that's going to be a fickle identity to hold on to. We can't control results 100%. That's just a given. Just study the mental model from the late and great Charlie Munger of entropy. If you throw a puzzle up in the air, the result of it actually landing all together is 0%, right? Like, that's not going to happen. So why would you think that that's going to happen in your own life? And so you have to make sure that you have a system that you're doing every single day that has objectives that you can knock off and tack off, and know that if you just continue to do those on a regular basis and consistent basis, then the results will come. But I always say that God's delays are not God's denials. But there is something larger out there, whatever you believe in, and whatever, there's something larger out there that has the ability to impact results more than just us. And we're a very small, tiny, planet in the world's, in the whole global ecosystem, right? And so just understanding that is extremely important. And again, you're going to hear a theme with me of I try to keep hope in my life no matter what. So if I got on the rower today and I put in the work on my Concept 2 rower, I have hope that that's going to create a better heart and lungs and physical body for me. So when my daughter Isabella walks down the aisle, I'm still there, right? And that's really important, because I think that's something that gets missed a lot is people want to get started and they want those results tomorrow. And that's just not how it works. And unfortunately, infinite patience produces immediate results. So if you can be patient with yourself along your journey, understand where you're at, and stop the comparison to other individuals and other people, because what we see on social media, whether that be LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, you name it, Twitter, is the best of someone's life through a filter, likely. I mean, I don't use social media outside of LinkedIn, but I've been told that every time you take a picture, there's filters that can make you look thinner or more tan or less tan or whatever you're looking to do. That's not real, right? And so you have to be careful with that comparison, because that is the thief of all happiness, and that is extremely self-serving when you're just comparing yourself versus somebody else. You have to compare yourself. And David Goggins. Sorry, I'm a big reader, so I'm gonna have a lot of books, but David Goggins calls it the accountability mirror. The only thing that you need to be comparing yourself against is who you were yesterday.
That's fascinating, and that I agree with you. Social media, it's tough for me too, and it's one of those things that the dopamine hits, and
Mm-hmm.
I saw this recommendation is to, stop looking at yourself in the mirror,
Yeah,
right? Because then you can focus on others and serving others, and really end up focusing on what's most important. Not, does my skin look different today, or is my hair
that's right.
not looking great, right? Things that really don't matter in the world, in reality, and certainly won't matter when you leave this earth and you
That's right.
graduate, right? No meaning whatsoever. So, I know, and I can tell you speak with a lot of passion, and I know you talk about it. The other thing that I know you are also very strongly opinion about is like purpose in life. So talk to me a little bit about that for you, and how that sort of helped you sort of as you went on your journey to creating your business and the real estate company you're in. Like, where did that fit?
Yeah, so passion is a word that gets thrown around a lot in entrepreneurship and self-development. And I think that passion is very fleeting, because you may this week be passionate about making the best chocolate bundt cake for your kids. And next week, you might be passionate about trying to lower your golf handicap. It's just,
Yeah.
that's really fickle. So I always say purpose and not passion. And a prime example is, let's talk about Saint Mother Teresa, for example. If her passion was to be in the WNBA, she was 4'6" or whatever, right? Like, she's not going to be in the WNBA regardless of how passionate she is about that. And so she found a purpose to serve other individuals and the marginalized and the sick and the poor, and try to do something there. And so I love purpose, because purpose can be found, and purpose can be found through a lot of different tools. I love tools like Strength Finders. I love tools like Ray Dalio's Principles U, Ikigai from the Japanese, right? I mean, all of these different, the hedgehog concept from, I think it's Jim Collins, right? There's so many different ideas and frameworks to get to find what your passion is, if cultivated, can become a purpose, right? And so I'm passionate about a lot of things, but that's not my purpose. My purpose is to try to motivate and inspire other individuals on a regular basis to think differently, so that they can live out the best versions of their lives, in hopes of creating a better world, right? So that's my purpose. And the way that I do that is multifaceted, whether it be through speaking to your audience today on a podcast, through a blog, through holding the door for somebody at the office, telling a joke, just whatever that might be, is just trying to elevate my game so it helps elevate other people. And so I have been able to find a purpose of leadership. And this is one thing that I pushed up against a lot, Tom. Like, growing up, I just wanted to be a really great producer, on the football field, on the basketball court, at work. And that gets you to a certain point, right? Like, if you, and some people should just be great producers. And I think that's okay. That's a totally fine thing. But I wanted something more. And at some level, you're going to cap out. So I started in real estate as a head of acquisitions for a $50 million fund. And I was a producer to go find them properties for their fund to purchase. But at some level, I could only do so much. So again, I found myself trading time for dollars. And so if you want to take the next step, you have to understand what leadership is. And leading individuals just means helping individuals see or be hopeful and see a vision that's larger than what they're working on, and get them and influence them to make good decisions that will better themselves and better the goal of the team, right? I think and you should do that through actions and less words, but it does take a lot of words as well, I've found over the years. And so I have now adopted a mentality that says, okay, well, if I want to become the best version of myself, then I need to become a really great leader of people. But how do you do that? Well, you need to be a great leader of yourself first. And so that is my number one leadership principle is, can you lead yourself in an effective and efficient manner? So you take what is most important to you. For me, it's faith, family, fitness, and future. And you can throw finances or business or whatever in the future part. But I'm always evaluating how I'm coming across in each one of those areas of my life and how am I leading myself in those. And then who is involved in each one of those areas of my life that I need to do a better job of leading towards. And that is my purpose, is to try to touch as many lives as I can to help them think that, hey, it's maybe not just the mentality of just doing the status quo and I clock in at 8 and I clock out at 5 and I'm just going to put my hours in. Maybe there's a way to elevate the way that you are showing up on a regular basis and lead those individuals through that. Because I'm a big believer, if you pour into other people, the karma effect will come back to help you. And so I transitioned from head of acquisitions for a $50 million fund to really focusing on commercial and multifamily properties as a 1031 exchange expert in the Kansas City area, helping those individuals find replacement properties and then put their team in place when they go to purchase a property. So that's a property manager, it's a contractor, it's an accountant, it's the lender, it's the insurance, it's all of the different components. And I found that to be extremely successful, and we were able to help a lot of individuals on that. And that's one of our businesses, which is Exchange CRE today. And we still are doing a lot of brokerage every single year. But through that, we started to find properties that we wanted to purchase ourselves. And so I think that we kind of had the mentality of, well, we found people that want to be active, and maybe they have to be active because they inherited a property or they bought a property and they need to sell it but want to do a 1031 exchange. But there's other people out there that don't want to deal with the toilets, the tenants, and the trash, and they want to get exposure to real estate, private equity type of structures without having to do the manual labor on that. So we put together a structure and we went and bought 1,500 multifamily apartment units. We have since now really focused on the commercial side and have added 5 shopping centers to our portfolio, a 215,000 square foot industrial building and a 40,000 square foot office building. And so my main focus now is really trying to help people along their journey of real estate, whether that be I'd like to be active and own something and I don't want partners, or hey, I've got $50,000 to $100,000 this year that I'd like to allocate. I'm looking for the right opportunity. Can you help me think through that? And so we've created some portfolio theory strategies to help folks really evaluate where their allocations are. And we really went back to the David Swinson model, which is, the Harvard or Ivy League, portfolio theory of alternatives, and tried to really implement that into a training to allow folks to understand what these alternative investments are. And I say alternative, I mean real estate, because that's all I focus on at the moment. But alternative is also a double-edged sword because commercial real estate is the 3rd largest asset class outside of stocks and bonds. So I guess it's an alternative, but there's a lot more alternatives now than there were, maybe 6 or 7, 8 years ago. You definitely couldn't buy, metaverse property next to Snoop Dogg 7 or 8 years ago, like you can now. Or Dogecoin or whatever is out there. But at the end of the day, tried to go really deep in my expertise, which would be Kansas City, Midwest multifamily and commercial real estate, and allow folks to come along that journey and learn with us.
Yeah. So who are you typically working with these days? Because you're pulling together investors into syndication or funds or whatever. Talk more about that. Like how's this set up?
Yeah, so we have a couple different ways to work with clientele. If somebody is actively looking to just purchase a property, then we have our brokerage, which we can either sell their property for them or help them identify another property. We specialize in off-market deals. So in 2022, many times we had a database of off-market opportunities, mostly in the multifamily space, that outnumbered what was available on LoopNet in our market. And so we have agreements with sellers to let us bring our buyers to their properties, but they don't want to list for whatever reason. So that's one. The second is, hey, Logan, I've heard Kansas City on a lot of different podcasts, a lot of different lists, and I know nothing about it. I'm getting ready to sell a 4-plex in California, and now I need to find a replacement property in Kansas City. So we will then go identify that for them, put their team in place, and do the 1031 exchange for them. The third is, we haven't acquired much real estate at all this year. One shopping center is all we have purchased. It's been a tough year for acquisitions. But the third way is someone that wants to either get access to a larger opportunity with management on site, that they don't have to focus on the toilets, tenants, and trash, or some other asset class that maybe they don't have exposure to, whether that be industrial or retail shopping center, that maybe their portfolio is allocated heavily to multifamily, so they're looking for something different. And so we kind of just decided that we'd have this all-in approach, and through conversations with individuals, we have found a lot of folks that are selling properties that they also want to invest passively, but also folks that have become passive investors for a couple of years have said, hey, I've got a band of 15 people that I think that I'm ready to go do this as well. So I put a lot of training together on that too, is to say, how do you kind of think about doing your first opportunity and run a deal yourself, right? And so I try to help people think through that as well. So passive investors, active investors, anyone that's involved in commercial real estate and interested in the Midwest, primarily Missouri and Kansas, are great folks for us to talk to. And we've spent a lot of time trying to develop content and educational resources around that.
That's great. That's great. Yeah, and one of the things that when I talk to folks, that's where the scary part comes. I don't even know where to start.
That's right.
Right. They think of the alternatives first. That gets scary. Which, to your point, this thing that's been around the longest, right? Real estate has been a lot longer than the stock market.
Right.
People in the ways people are building wealth. So alternative to me, it's just a kind of funny word. But one of the things I often hear from people is, how do they want to touch and feel. They're so used to their primary residence. They're like, how do I invest out of state? How do I get comfortable with that? Because I can't go to it or manage. I don't know enough about it. So how do you help folks sort of address that major concern? Because I hear that often.
Yeah, I think that you have to start one of two areas. One is either a geographic location, or the other one might be an asset class that they may be interested in. And typically through that, I will hear a few different things. And geographic location is, well, Logan, I'm in California, and there's no way that I'm going to buy any type of real estate in California outside of my personal residence, and here's why. I said, well, back in 2019, believe it or not, my gosh, it's a long time ago, I spent a decent amount of time at Apple, Amazon, eBay, and Intel, their internal interest groups, saying this: look, you guys live in a money state. You have a great job. You're software engineers, you're data scientists, you're doing really good work for a tech company, but you don't live in a deal state necessarily. And where the deal states are is where you can still find cash flow and a good basis. And that's typically Midwest or maybe even the Sun Belt markets. And so we created a pipeline for those investors to have access to those types of opportunities. So that was one thing. And you have to educate, because again, just like, how did we start this podcast? Well, I asked you a question about the capital of Missouri, and we are a flyover state, right? If you're going from one coast to the other, we are definitely a flyover state. But I think COVID really exacerbated these trends that were happening pre-COVID, but really put some gasoline on the fire in regards to being able to live in a state that maybe be less expensive, but work somewhere else. And the gig economy and all these different things for work from home has really exacerbated that. And so people are looking for places like Nashville, Tennessee, Kansas City, Missouri, Lincoln, Nebraska, Des Moines, Iowa, places in Atlanta or Florida, or different places that they might not have thought about. And so I think that is an important thing. And what you always start with for looking as a good investment is the demand drivers, whether that be population growth, job growth, infrastructure development, buzz around the city. Because I'm not sure I've heard many folks say, man, you should really go invest in Memphis, Tennessee. But I can tell you 6 or 7 years ago, Memphis, Tennessee was a hotspot for real estate investment. I mean, hotspot, right? So you have to be really knowledgeable about what's going on in those markets. I also think that, one trend that happened was the typical gateway markets of, California, New York City got really expensive from a personal level, but also a commercial level. And so that started to attract money to secondary and tertiary markets like the Midwest that were chasing yield. What do I mean by that? Well, they're looking for cash flow. So, for example, here you might be able to buy a multifamily property at a 6.5% cap rate, but in one of the gateway markets, it might be a 3% cap rate. And where debt is now, there is no cash flow. So your goals as an investor have to be different in those markets than they are here. And so that started to really send some different trends and a lot of capital towards the Midwest and off of the coasts a little bit. There's still a lot of opportunity here because Kansas City is still a growing market, and so are those other areas. But I think that understanding that is a great place to start. And the way that I do that when I'm looking at a new market is I will just type in, Kansas City or Des Moines, Iowa into my podcast search. I use Spotify, so I search that and I go to podcasts, and guess what? There's usually 10 to 15 different podcast episodes talking about what's going on in those markets, right? Find somebody like me in Kansas City. If it's a different market, Des Moines, Iowa, I'm sure there's somebody, talking about how great Des Moines, Iowa is. We own property in Des Moines, Iowa, so I do believe it's a great area. But how do you get really knowledgeable about it? It's conversations like this. It's the boots on the ground practitioners and folks that are on the ground in the areas that you're talking with. And we could have a whole episode just about what's going on in Kansas City. I can speak about Kansas City for 2 hours if you allow me to, right? Because that's where I'm at. I know what's going on north, south, east, west. I know where to be, where not to be. I know all of the different things. I know where the development is happening and where the capital is going. And so if you're looking to invest in an area, you need to have somebody that knowledgeable about that market so that you feel comfortable, because you're not going to be able to get all of the knowledge. So I'll have people reach out to me a lot saying, Logan, I got a multifamily deal in Dallas-Fort Worth, man. Hot area. It's Dallas-Fort Worth, it's Dallas-Fort Worth, it's Dallas-Fort Worth, right? Like that's all they keep saying. And I'm like, I see the trends of Dallas-Fort Worth, but tell me Texas is a big state, right? Tell me why someone couldn't take a piece of property next to your multifamily project and develop the exact same product or better product, and then maybe impact your rental rates that you're going to be able to get 2 years from now, right? So there's just things like that I can't answer. If you say, Logan, why Lenexa, Kansas, or Overland Park, or Leawood, or Lee Summit, or Gladstone, I can tell you price per square foot. I can tell you where the development is going on. And so I think that's a really important asset, for investors to be thinking about. And then, like I mentioned, asset classes, right? So you have to be bought in that either multifamily, retail, industrial, office, self-storage, mobile home park, whatever it is, you believe that there is a long-term trend for that asset class. And so that requires a lot of information seeking and a lot of education around that, because real estate is hyper-local, but it's also hyper sub-asset class, meaning the large power centers or malls is lumped into retail, which is a lot different than strip centers and neighborhood retail shopping centers. Same with multifamily. Brand new Class A, you have Class C value add that was built in the 60s. Complete different ball game. And you have to look at what you're trying to accomplish as an investor with your risk and return that you're trying to generate, and then pair that up with a geographic location and the asset class and type that you're trying to actually go invest in. And so those are all of the questions that I would urge folks to really understand. There's some great resources out there. Joe Fairless's Best Ever Real Estating book, his podcast. I mean, you can search podcasts. They're very regularly updated, and I find myself listening to a lot of podcasts when I'm working out in the mornings, just trying to stay educated. The other thing this will do, Tom, is this will get people stuck in analysis by paralysis, right? So they start to do this and they're like, oh my gosh, this is too much. I can't figure it out. I'm not going to invest in real estate. So I highly recommend sitting down with what your goals are, with what asset classes and geographic locations that interest you are, and then going deep in those, and then not getting the shiny object syndrome and going to the next thing until you cross that off your list. Like either that's what I want to focus on, or finding something else that says, actually out of my research, I'm really interested in mobile home parks and not multifamily. So that's kind of my methodology, my mental model that I try to help people through. In reality, that usually takes 3 to 6 months with new investors.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. I mean, because to your point, when we talked about before, this is not a sprint. Especially getting into a new investment sort of model like real estate, and there's so many ways you can do it. And it's easy to fall prey to that. paralysis sort of mode where you're just kind of looking at everything. Yes, you have to get educated, but you also have to recognize there are people out there that are educated and experienced, and getting to know them, right? The whole concept of the network is your net worth. You've got to surround yourself with people that know, like Logan and others who are way more deeper into the markets and understanding these type of investments. Because I often get asked, where do I invest? And I said, what do you know? What do you understand? Who do you know?
I love that.
Because before you can start, you got to figure out why you're investing this. What's the purpose of it? What are you going to do with this money? Right? So it's those types of things, because we can just randomly throw investment types at you, and I can push you down somewhere very, very easily.
Yes.
But you don't know why you're investing. It's pointless. You're going to lose interest. You're going to hate it. You're going to wonder why you ever did it. So it really takes some time, like you said, and people say 3-6 months. Well, heck, that's not that long, right? But you got to invest the time, right, for it. So really awesome stuff, man, because it's one of those areas, like, and I started, you mentioned Memphis. I started there myself, and it was hard for me. I'm a big thinker. I like to look at things. So I'm one of those guys. I had to force myself, once I figured out I had enough information, it was go time, because I knew I was going to sit on my hands for the next 3 to 5 years. So once it gets started, you start learning, you get excited, and you start learning, and it becomes easier, just like anything else, just like riding a bike. And you're going to change, right? So it's great. It's awesome stuff, man. So listen, that was awesome, Logan. This is wonderful stuff. And, definitely at some point, I'd love to come back to kind of share more details around the Kansas City market more. I think that would be a great sort of time for us to dig a little bit deeper in there. But I really love you sharing your story, your background, kind of how you're involved, and kind of where you're a purpose-driven organization. It's not just about investments and numbers and rates of return, which we can all get bogged down to, but you've got to understand why we're doing any of this, because you're going to turn back years from now and be like, what the hell did I just do?
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly.
Easy.
I think that taking a comprehensive look at the why behind investing in real estate is extremely important, and then aligning yourself with sponsors, individuals, folks that have that similar mentality and mindset is extremely important in investing. And that's not spoke about a lot, because people say, it's data driven and it's quantitative. I can tell you, through having 300 plus investors now doing over 500 transactions, there's still a lot of emotion in it, and it's very qualitative. Absolutely.
We're emotional beings when we just use the numbers to justify it. And I've come to realize that, even though I'm an analytical guy, I'm emotion driven too.
That's right.
Right? We're doing this for bigger things, bigger purposes for our families and for future generations to come. So I appreciate, Logan, you sharing your insights, and I can easily tell you're well read, and we're going to put a lot of those things in the show notes.
Awesome.
So thanks for sharing those. That's really awesome stuff, because it's valuable stuff that'll help you sort of shape your mindset and your thinking about things. So definitely we'll put those in there. So Logan, any last parting shots before we conclude this episode? So,
I would just say that a big opportunity is coming, and there's always big opportunity, but I do believe the next 2 to 5 years will allow for major wealth creation because of dislocation. We can talk through geopolitical risk. We can talk through just unrest in the United States. We can talk through Federal Reserve rates. We can talk through a lot of different things, but I do believe that we will start to find big opportunities. So right now is the time to be listening to podcasts like this, educating yourself, getting that hope, and getting that new perspective. So Tom, just thanks enough. I can't say thanks enough for having me on and allowing me to come speak. I really appreciate it.
That's awesome. And last thing, Logan, where's best for folks who want to learn about more? I know you have a ton of education and ebooks and other things for people to consume. Like, yes. where best to go about that?
You can find me on LinkedIn, Logan Freeman, Mr. Kansas City. That's an easy way to find me. And then my website is FTWinvestmentsllc.com, and I have lots of free resources over there as well. So I look forward to connecting whoever is interested in Kansas City.
That's awesome. And just as a minor piece, I I am a Philly fan, so Eagles fan, so it's tough. People who know me closely, they're going to say, "Why the hell did you have someone from Kansas City on here?" But listen, I'm just trying to find good people who know their stuff and can add value to people. So forgive me.
Well, you
But
got the best of us in the regular season. I know that they've had a little struggle against two really good teams recently, but I wish the Chiefs had a little better luck against some not so good teams. But that's the NFL, right? I mean, that you're playing at the highest level. Anyone can beat anybody at any day. So you got to stay on top of it, just like investing.
Absolutely. Spot on, man. All right. Well, Logan, thanks again, man. Appreciate it. We'll definitely talk to you soon, and God bless and have a great holiday.
You too, Tom. Thanks again.
Thanks for joining me on this episode today. I really am grateful for you as listeners to the Perennial Pride podcast. I hope you're getting some tremendous value out of it and hopefully pushing you along your journey to financial freedom. I put this podcast together really to help you get more educated around your finances so that you feel empowered to live the life that you really want. And if you like the content that you heard today or watched, then I would encourage you to go to my website, perennialpride.com. There's tons of other content there. And you can access my book, Wealth Beyond the Numbers. You can buy it there on my website. It's a aggregation of a lot of great tips and tools I've learned to not only build my wealth in my accounts, but build wealth in my life and abundance and joy, and something that has a lot of my experiences in the journey that I've been on personally. Hopefully that can be also of value to you as you sort of move forward. So thanks again for being a Perennial Pride listener, and we'll see you on the next episode.